Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Aspire IQ's Community and Coffee. If this is your first time viewing an episode, Community and Coffee is a series of conversations on the hottest topics in social media, influencer, and digital marketing. I'm very excited for this episode, which will cover all things surrounding the importance of influencer marketing budgets and content creator compensation. Before we get to that, my name is Madison Smith, Senior Marketing Strategist for Aspire IQ, and I am so excited to be joined today by Lindsay Silberman, content creator, business owner, and fashionista. The list goes on and on. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today. I know we have so much to discuss.
So much. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I think this is a really important and pertinent conversation right now.
Definitely. And I'm going to give you time to do a little bit about your background, your career path. But first, to give a little background to those watching at Aspire IQ, we really pride ourselves on being as educational and transparent to our clients as possible. And a topic of conversation we have daily with our clients centers on navigating content creator compensation, product only campaigns, and a lot of company budget restrictions. So we as Aspire IQ were very well versed on the brand side of influencer campaigns. However, with the advancement in social media and technology, and of course, therefore, a creator's expertise, we felt it was important to amplify the creator side of campaign partnerships, which is why I have Lindsay joining me for this episode today. So on her Instagram account, that's at Lindsay, SILB as in boy, Lindsay vocalized the constant struggle she faces when communicating her worth to brands that reach out to work with her, and highlighted how influencer partnerships go far beyond writing a caption and posting a photo. Our hope with this conversation is to shine a light on all the work that goes into a content creator partnership that brands may not realize, and offer advice on how to improve a brand's current program. So to kick things off, Lindsay, I'd love for you to tell a little bit about your background, how you started your career, and really how you've been able to grow such a large, engaged community.
Sure. So I'll give you guys just a brief background on me. So I had a whole other life before my influencer life. I spent 10 years working as a journalist, working for all the big publications, Hearst, Condé Nast. I wrote for Vogue, the Wall Street Journal, Town and Country, Elle Decor. Most recently, I was the deputy digital editor of both Town and Country magazine and Elle Decor. And so I like to think that I bring sort of a different perspective to influencer life and influencer marketing and content creation, because I really am always coming at things from a journalistic editorial background. I started to grow my following while I was working in magazines. I was primarily focused on beauty and travel. I was just posting photos on Instagram organically, and people were really kind of intrigued about my life and like the kind of experiences I was having. And I got to go to all these fancy hotels and travel all over the world and go to cool events. And so I was posting all that on Instagram. And eventually people started saying, well, you know a lot about beauty products because you get sent all these things and you interview all these people, and you know a lot about travel because you've been all these places. So what's your favorite product for X, or what's your favorite hotel for Y? And it slowly just morphed into this thing where it became clear that I didn't necessarily need a huge platform in terms of a corporation or a publisher in order to be successful. So I basically took everything that I had done over the past 10 years in terms of journalism and editorial and parlayed that into my own platform. And so now I have a blog, lindsaysilberman.com. I have my Instagram, Facebook groups, TikTok, all of that stuff. And then more recently, I launched my first company. So I launched a company called Hotel Lobby Candle in 2012. And that is a luxury home fragrance line inspired by the 5-star hotel experience. So it's been really interesting to see what it feels like to be, I've spent so many years working with brands but never being the product brand myself. So it's been really cool to see what that feels like to be on the other side. And I feel like I now have a new understanding of both sides of the equation and not just from the influencer side.
A very eye-opening part of that series that you did was really the amount of behind the scenes work that content creators kind of have to navigate when crafting a sponsored influencer campaign. And so to paint a picture for our brand partners, walk me through a typical influencer partnership from when a brand reaches out to kind of when you wrap up. How much time does it take? What does your to-do list involve? Are they typically long-term partnerships? Walk me through that.
Sure. So I think this is one of the things that my followers and just people in general are most surprised about. I think there was this school of thought years ago that being an influencer, you just take out your iPhone, you take a picture of a product and you post it. And then it's like, okay, you collect a check and it's so easy and you're done. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, who take this very seriously and are obsessive about every single aspect of the content, that one little picture that you see on Instagram represents weeks and weeks of work and then years of trust building among your community. Like, I always feel like I have a very special relationship with my audience, and people really trust me when I recommend a beauty product or something, because for 10 plus years, this is what I've done. And, I'm very discerning in the products that I recommend. So if I choose to work with a brand, they're not only paying for the access to my audience and for the content, but they're also paying for the trust and loyalty that my followers have in me that I've built over the course of 10 years. So just to walk you through like the step by step. So let's say a brand reaches out. Usually, the first thing I'll do, I look up their Instagram account, or I'll look at their website and just see their branding, because sometimes right off the bat, I'm like, I can tell this just isn't a fit for me. Or maybe I see potential in the brand, but like, it's just not being communicated the right way. Because, something that's really important to someone like me who cares a lot about my brand, if I'm working with a company and obviously I know people are going to either follow them, buy the product, or tap on their handle, I need it to be a good reflection on me. So if someone taps on the handle, the Instagram account of something that I'm promoting, I want them to see something that reflects like an aesthetic and, well curated and something beautiful. I'll ask to see the product, to try it out. If it's a brand that I know and I've worked with many times before or I've used before, I trust that they're going to create a product that I love. But then typically I'll spend a lot of time testing the product, looking at their website. I'll even like go so far as like read interviews with the CEO, watch YouTube videos about how the brand came to be, how to pronounce the name of the product. I just really like to understand every single nuance of this product, because if I'm going to be talking about it, I want to know what's cool and why the product was even created. If it's like a granola bar, I want to know, is the person who founded it a former Olympian and they created it because it needed to serve a need for XYZ? Like, for me, that storytelling is all a really important part of the content creation, because ultimately I'm trying to sell and I want to be able to sell to my audience in a way that makes sense. And, when there's a story behind the brand or the product, that's really important. And so then that's sort of like the research phase. Then if I'm interested and we want to move forward, I have a manager who kind of fields all the requests, will send over what my rates are, and go back and forth about negotiation, whether it's exclusivity, what kind of content do they want, a reel, do they want an Instagram story, do they want to get rights to paid ads? All of that stuff kind of comes into consideration for the quote. I also am really big on blog content, because I tell brands all the time, my blog is SEO optimized. I have blog posts that I've written for brands that they paid one time. It was a one-off post review. And that post now comes up in Google as like the number one or number two. When someone's searching for XY product review, my review comes up first. So I like try to stress to brands all the time. People think blogs are like a thing of the past. It is the smartest possible thing for a brand to pay someone to do a really good blog post, because that lives on forever. Once we sort of agree upon what the deliverables are and the budget is, Then we'll go back and forth on the contract, and then it's the creative brief. So typically the brands will send a PDF or a one sheet detailing everything they do want, they don't want. I usually love when brands send examples of content, even if they've never done an influencer campaign before. I just like when they say, we really love the way like this, something like this looked, or this is a post you've done in the past. We feel like something like that would resonate, because it like sometimes I feel like I have to be a mind reader, and I'm like, unless I see what's in their brain and like what they're thinking of, it's really hard for me to kind of guess. And so it does just help to kind of understand like what wavelength they're on. So then it's sort of the creative, trying to figure out what they want and then what I can do to produce that. For example, yesterday I shot a campaign with a tequila brand. I went on Pinterest. I spent about an hour looking for inspo about like props. You know, am I getting lemons and limes? Am I getting a wooden cutting board? All of these like little tiny things that when you see them in a photo, you just take it for granted. You're like, oh, cute. It's a margarita ad. It's a tequila ad. But what you don't think about is like the hours and hours that all of the thought that went into it. So then it's creating the content. It's either hiring a photographer or shooting it yourself. It's then going through all the hundreds of images, narrowing it down to a couple, then editing those images, submitting them to the brand, having the brand sign off, thinking about a caption. If it's Instagram stories, which of course we all do a lot of, it's filming those and just thinking a lot about what are we going to say and how am I going to convey that message to people. And there's a lot of psychology that goes into it too. I'm always thinking about, okay, if I'm the viewer of this story, what is going to be the thing that convinces me to swipe up or click or buy this product? So I always just put myself in the shoes of the viewer, and then submitting all of that, getting approval, posting it. Then typically when I post a sponsored post, I'll spend about an hour or so on my account, engaging with people, answering questions. I always will say, DM me if you have questions, then I will respond to those. Sometimes I'll screenshot the DMs and share them with the brand, just to kind of show the brand what kind of conversations people are having, what questions they have. A lot of times brands don't even realize like what questions customers might have or followers might have before making the purchase. And then finally sending analytics at the end, like a wrap up report with all of the details. So, you know, that was a very long-winded answer, but I think my intention in sharing all of those things is just to remind brands sending a free product is just not appropriate for all of that work that I just described. And if you want to work with a creator that takes their content as seriously and is creating content that's that elevated, they're not going to do that for just like a free box of cookies. So I am a firm believer in you do get what you pay for. And for what I charge for my content, you're getting a lot for what you pay for. For brands that are working with a smaller budget, I mean, being able to have like a full production created just for you and your product for like not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things by a single person is a pretty incredible thing. You know, 10 years ago, if you wanted beautiful product shots, like think about how much that would have cost you. Now you have someone, you just write the check, you have the content created for you, and you have someone putting it out to an audience of engaged followers. So I think brands really need to kind of adjust their thought process. And rather than thinking of it as like a lot of money to throw at someone to take an iPhone photo, I think we need to reposition our thought process to realize that you're actually paying for a full production for not very much money. Influencers, because this is what we do, we're used to creating the content that gets people to engage. We know like stylistically and aesthetically the type of photos and things that perform well. And I feel like a lot of brands sometimes get in their own way when they're doing content that feels very manufactured and very branded, like stock photography. Even for my brand, my candle brand, we shot all the photos the same way I would shoot an Instagram campaign. I didn't want it to feel so highly produced. I didn't want it to be like in a studio with lights and whatever. I wanted it to feel like Instagram. And so I think that is something also to consider when you're thinking about hiring influencers.
You impact every department within a company because you are, even like you said, you screenshot DMs you'll get and you send it to the brand. That is product feedback that they can then take back to their product team. And maybe you get a lot of questions about a way something works, and then they can write a blog post on that, and that's their editorial team. Or
100%.
then they, take your content, repurpose it in their email marketing. You impact every single department, and I think that that is something that still needs to be educated to brands and mainly their leadership about how influencer can impact every single department within a company.
I will say you need to be selective in who you're working with. You need to be targeted and looking at people who you feel are creating the content and attracting the audience of like the target type of people you want. You have to weigh what's important to you. So if there's a creator whose content you love and you could totally envision your product in that content, and maybe they're a little more expensive, it's more worth it to know what you're going to get because you've seen what that person is capable of doing. I think sometimes brands just like think of a blanket statement and we'll just reach out to 100 people and then they're disappointed with the results. I'm all about like more targeted, more specificity, and going after the people that you feel are creating content that's representative of what you want your brand to be.
We've talked about it a little bit, but really from our perspective and what we try and educate to our clients every day is the amount of value that comes out of influencers and their content beyond just the brand awareness element. Obviously, the content part of it, you are experts in how to create and really promote things in a way that is what your audience will buy or engage with. It's not just about, the number of followers you have, but it's the fact that you've been able to build up this community, and that's really what brands are paying for. And we just mentioned, the feedback that they're able to get on their product or their service. So, as an influencer and on the other side as a business owner as well, what do you feel are really those top reasons why brands should look to work with content creators aside from the ones that you've already mentioned?
Sure. So I think that a lot of brands are slow or maybe just not fully there yet in terms of the value that getting a recommendation from a person, how valuable that is. I feel like the conversion is so much higher when you have like an actual person that has followers who connect with them. And that person is giving their stamp of approval. For example, I worked with a beauty brand and picked out what I thought was like the best deal because I knew, I was like, oh, as a consumer, I would jump all over this deal. Like, my followers are going to go crazy for this. And so I posted it and we ended up selling out the entire product from that website over the course of like 2 hours because it was like people were sharing it, people were commenting, sharing in the Facebook group. Did you get it? Oh my God, thanks so much for sharing this deal. And like, I just feel there's no other place. Where else can you get that? There's just no other place that I can think of. I'm sure you can do Facebook ads or Instagram ads, Google ads, all of that, but there's just something very human and valuable about having an actual person endorse your product that can't be compared to.
Yeah, it's like TikTok right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you see one viral video about a product and the leggings that come out.
Yeah.
Or,
And it's just like, and I just feel that this is now the way consumers shop. I mean, at least for our generation, the only things I buy are things that I've seen other people talk about. I just don't even know where I would find out about something if I didn't see it on TikTok or on Instagram. Like, I'm not seeing ads on TV and being like, oh, let me go figure out if I like that product or how it works or whatever. I'm strictly buying things based on people I see. And maybe I'm not buying it the very first time I see someone post about it, but you better believe on TikTok, when I saw that Maybelline mascara by like the 5th person that had posted about this Maybelline mascara, I was like, okay, fine. Now I need it. Now I need to get it. And now I have it too. And then I posted about it. And then all these people, I was probably the 5th or 6th person that people had seen post about it. So then they went and bought it. It's just this like snowball effect that really creates a momentum for a product and brand and really can have a huge impact. There's so many ways to do it on a smaller scale. I've seen so many small brands go viral on TikTok because they just had a really clever video idea, or they had a creator who was smart and created something really viral for them.
We've been talking about how you have that experience on both sides of the table, and you very much understand marketing budget breakdowns and how many approvals it has to go through, how those dollars ladder up to broader business objectives across, multiple channels. And what we saw, of course, in the beginning of the pandemic was a lot of brands had to tighten their budgets. And sometimes influencer marketing was one of the first budgets to go. What do you think are some of the reasons that influencer as a marketing channel isn't always regarded as that topmost priority within a company's marketing budgets? And how would you make the case to executives to keep it?
So I think that's a great question. And what I saw during the pandemic was super interesting. There's not a ton of risk with influencer, but I think that some people perceive it as a risky investment because it's new and they hear horror stories or they just don't know, like, well, what if we spend all this money and nothing happens? But like, you also could spend all that money in other ways and have nothing happen to. I think at least with influencer, there's like a lot more ROI, like proven ROI and data that you can get. But what I saw was that brands that were maybe more traditional, that felt like it was too risky to put their money toward influencer, were pulling back. And then other brands, kind of like maybe newer, more open-minded, or brands that had a person who headed up their marketing that really got it, realized that putting money in the hands of influencers during the pandemic was the smartest strategy they could have possibly done, because my content during quarantine my engagement was the highest it had ever been. People were just sitting on their phones watching it all day. Some of the campaigns that I did during that period, the people who really put their faith in us really benefited, especially companies that had things to do with home life. And so it was also nice. Like, I did some really cool campaigns that were different than what I usually do. I think brands were kind of a little bit more open-minded because they wanted to take the temperature of what I felt my audience was comfortable with at that time. Obviously there's a lot of sensitivities, but we sort of just did things that felt more appropriate, that weren't as maybe over the top as we would do in non-pandemic times. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is like brands who are sort of new at the influencer game, people were nervous and so they chose not to. But I think the ones that did really, really benefit from it.
And if you had been at that table when, executives or leadership were figuring out what to cut in a budget, what would have been the case you would have made for keeping that influencer budget? Is there anything you could call out that then, our clients or brands watching could then take to their leadership and say, hey, like, this is why we really need to either put budget behind influencer or just even try it out?
Yeah, I think it's what I just said about the fact that like we have a captive audience. People are just bored and attached to their phones, and like we are the people that they're watching. It's literally why I launched my candle brand while we were in quarantine, because I knew that people were spending so much time at home. They like needed something to get excited about and like feel, trying to turn their homes into some sort of like escape, or just, have some sort of like special at home experience. And I also think in times when budgets are cut and maybe like, they're not able to produce those big shoots, or maybe they never even had a budget for a big shoot, the things that influencers are able to come up with, like by being so scrappy, is unbelievable. Like some of the stuff that I saw people creating during quarantine with like ordering a backdrop from Amazon, and people teaching themselves how to use these apps for crazy stop motion videos. I just feel like the level of like creativity, and listen, at the end of the day, like our job is on the line here. So we are always going to have to push and learn new things and create the best possible content, because that's our livelihoods. I think it's important to remember that like we want this to succeed even more than a brand does, because this is our jobs are on the line and we want repeat business. So I always go like so above and beyond for the brands that I work with, because my thought is like, it'll be a lot easier for me next time around to work with them again or have them come back to me because they were happy with it. So like, I just think, brands need to remember, put faith in people like us who are really going to try hard and make the best possible content, because this is what we do.
You also mentioned in your Instagram stories that for your own business, you guys don't currently have an influencer budget. So you do seeding campaigns with really no requirement to post. You said that you've been sending out hotel lobby candles to, some influencers you felt it would fit with their aesthetic, or, all that good stuff. So if and when you do eventually have an influencer budget, where do you see it falling within your overall marketing? Is it going to come out of, paid advertising budgets, content creation spend, or somewhere else?
My company is literally just me and my husband. We are super small. We just launched last year. So of course we don't have a budget. I mean, we're self-funded. We like barely can pay ourselves. So we certainly like don't have a budget to pay for influencers. With that, I think we had very managed expectations. I knew that if I don't have an influencer budget, I have no way of guarantee. I can't expect that anyone is going to post the content if I'm not paying them. I wrote a list of all the people that our candles seem like so on brand with like their style. We also created like a really beautiful unboxing experience. So even if an influencer is like, well, they're not paying me, they may be tempted to just do it anyway because it's so beautiful. And like part of your job as an influencer is to introduce your audience to cool new brands that you're discovering. I think that I was very realistic in knowing that we sent out maybe 30 or 40 candles and like it could have amounted to nothing. That was very possible. But I think number one, our approach was I wrote handwritten notes to every person and I said, hi, I just want to introduce you to my small business. I think you would love this candle because I know XYZ. I've noticed that you XYZ. Absolutely no pressure to post. I just want you to enjoy it and I hope you love the brand. And then of course I put our Instagram handle and I put our website and everything as a little reminder. If you were to post, this is the handle. But I think that approach, and especially to me being on the receiving end, that approach, it gets me every time. When a brand comes at me with an offer, we want to send you something that's valued at $54, $60, which are, what our candles are valued at. And we expect 1 to 2 Instagram stories, a static post, and usage of your content. I like immediately go into defense mode because my immediate thought is like, no, this takes so much time for me. I'm exposing my audience to something like that. I'm using my platform to promote your product. There's nothing in it for me. I mean, a candle's nice. It's not nice enough to require that much of my time and thought. By approaching it in a way that you are sympathetic to the amount of work that goes into content creation, and by saying, of course, we would, if you love the product, we'd love for you to tag us, but no pressure. We just want you to enjoy it. I tell brands this all the time, like, you will get such better results with that if you do approach it with the mindset of like, well, I want something in return for this. The quality of creators that you're going to get who are going to be willing to do that for a $50 candle or whatever, it's not going to be what you want. Someone who's that eager to create content for something that's not going to help pay their bills, I just don't know if that level of content creation and their level of actual influence is going to be worth your time. The best approach, if you don't have a budget, is you just gift as much as you possibly can, being very targeted, being very like kind and sympathetic. And you know what, if you don't hear anything, you can send like a little casual follow-up. This then can be used as a tool for later down the road when you do have a budget. You see how people reacted and were there people that posted about it organically, and could you tell that they really did love it? Great. Those are the people that you want to pay next because they're the ones who are going to be like loyal supporters of your product and brand.
That is a great point. Those are the organic people that were willing to support you then. So when you do get budget, you can then kind of turn them into those long-term partners. It's a really great point.
Totally.
And all that you just said actually answers our next question because given, of course, all the work that you put into partnerships, it's obviously frustrating from the creator side to kind of just be asked to do all of that work for free product. And during your Instagram stories, a lot of people DM'd you about the different financial situations a brand may be in where either some brands just truly don't have the money to allocate to influencer partnerships like Hotel Lobby Candle. They can't get budget approval from leadership, or they have like a very, very high value product they want to gift in exchange for the content or incorporate it into the compensation package. Somebody DM'd you and said, we have a $600 stroller.
Mm-hmm.
So in cases where somebody either like really just only wants to compensate with that high value product, how do you usually handle those negotiations?
So I think it just kind of depends like what your situation is, right? So if you're a new mom or you're an expecting mom and you are planning on buying a stroller anyway, whatever stroller you buy, you would probably be posting about it. If that is going to be of value to you and what the deliverables being asked are reasonable, then I'm sure there's plenty of moms who would create great content in exchange for a stroller because they're at a point in their lives where that's of value to them. I recently redid my apartment. So I was very willing to do barter based partnerships, whether it be for, shades or I don't know, like a rug or a piece of furniture or something. The couch behind me, I really was dying for this pink couch and it was pricey. And I certainly didn't expect to be paid for like the couch. It was $2,500 in addition to posting about it. But I reached out to the brand and I said, listen, like I'm in a situation where it would be of real value to me to do a barter for this sofa, and I can promise you you're good, the couch is going to be in the background of all my photos and videos. And so that's like a perfect scenario in which it was like a mutually beneficial thing. I think, you always, a brand should just always think like, is this mutually beneficial or is it only benefiting us?
I didn't even really think of it from that point of view where it's like, okay, what is their life moment right now and what could benefit them
Totally.
the most?
Because believe me, like I was during the time when I was redoing this apartment, I would have been like, we were spending so much money on things. I would have been willing to like give my left arm for a desk chair or a desk or whatever. So I think it's just being mindful of like whether that product will be of value to the person during that period of their lives. Trust me, anyone in their right mind who does this full time and or even does it part time and takes this seriously is not going to create amazing content for you in exchange for something that's valued at $7. They're just not.
Yeah, and I mean the quality of the content is definitely a huge piece of working with influencers because you can take that content, of course, if you have those content rights, you repurpose it on your own
Totally.
marketing channels in, any advertisements on your website, whatever it may be, and that just also lifts your brand trust within your own company.
Yeah, and for smaller creators too, like maybe someone is like a micro influencer and has like 8,000 followers or 10,000 followers. Okay, like I wouldn't expect a brand to shell out thousands of dollars for a paid post for them, but if their content's really great and you feel like you could be paying them extra to turn that into ads or using it, in your own site, it actually doesn't matter how many followers they have. There are other people that you can go to for extremely high conversion and crazy amount of sales. But if you go to maybe a smaller person who you're relying on less to move the needle, maybe they're not going to like sell out your store in a second, but if they're really good at content creation, what they do, pay them to create content for you then to use in ads or use on your own, on your own feed editorially or organically.
Since we've been talking about values, my favorite line from your series was when you said how every brand you work with, your audience knows that they have chosen to invest in you and make you feel valued. I loved that quote that you said.
I guess I had never articulated that before to my audience, but the reactions that I got from people were so on board. People were like, we know when we see you doing an ad, that means that they met your rate, that they supported you and invested in you. And now we want to support those brands. I have a long-term deal with a multivitamin company. I have long-term partnerships with a bunch of big brands that I think people may have been skeptical about, or maybe just thought, oh, it's just another influencer thing. But I think that when I shifted their mindset to think, don't think of it as a brand that's just paying a bunch of influencers to hawk their stuff. Think of it as a brand that understands the value of influencers and they're investing in us. Like, do you want to support a brand that's offering me, a free mascara and expecting the world? Like, you don't want to support a brand like that. You want to support the brands that are going to support me. And I think people who do have really loyal communities, they'll be in it for the long haul with these brands when they see that the brands are supporting the creator.
I feel like that's another overlooked element that brands can be educated on, that when you work with influencers and choose to invest in them, in their content and invest in their audience, you then as a company get that trust as well.
It's also just so much more long term than just a single post. Like, for example, I've done maybe like 3 or 4 partnerships with this loungewear brand, and I haven't done something with them maybe in like 6 months. people still come to me and they're like, hey, do you have a code for the, oh, I only discovered them because of you. Can you send me a link, or I want to use your link for that? And I just think to myself, that brand I haven't done anything with them in a while. I converted people back in the time when I was working with them, and those people are still buying it. And then they're telling their friends. So I think, you kind of do need to think about it as a more long-term investment. And it's not just like a one-off thing where it's like one and done. I also will say that I find that brands who do make that investment in influencers will see the influencer continue to post about them organically after the deal is done. Number one, for selfish reasons, a lot of people are like, you want the brand to see that you're still using the product just because, you want them to keep you in mind for the next time. And there is also something really important about consistency. So for me, I don't like to just hop around and post 25 different competing hair products. I stick to my same like 3 or 4 brands that I know I've worked with in the past, or I'm dying to work with, or people know that I love. And I'll continue to post about them organically if a brand's paid me in the past. So I think that like it is something also to think about. People will support a brand that supports them.
All of those also kind of go back to a couple of things that you said in the beginning, where your blog posts come up when somebody is searching for something, and that may be a blog post you wrote a year ago. You also mentioned that you personally like have to see something multiple times
Always.
before you go and buy it. And
Yeah.
that is just another element where, and we constantly are, telling our clients that you need to develop long-term partnerships and not focus on those one-off posts because these reasons exactly.
I totally understand a brand being trepidatious about, okay, we never worked with this person before we want to try it out. But what I will say is, without question, the partnerships that I've done where it involved like a multi-prong approach, or, one post a month for 6 months, or, 4 posts over the course of 3 months or something, are so much more successful when followers see the consistency and they're like, oh, that's right, she mentioned that before, and then I also saw an ad for that thing, and then I saw another influencer post about it, and then I'm posting about it again. It helps so much. Followers want to believe that I am using something or talking about it for the long haul. They're like, oh, here she's talking about it again, okay, like now I'm going to listen. I tell my manager always to advise that we just don't see things being it's just never going to be like a runaway hit, like the first, because especially if it's a new product or a new brand that people don't know about.
Yeah.
First you have to like do the education and talk about what the brand is. Then you need to go into selling this specific product and why the product is so great. And then it's like, and then all of a sudden your 3 frames or whatever are up. So like it really does need to be a multi-prong approach. And I highly encourage brands to think about more longer term partnerships. And it ends up being more budget friendly, because most influencers will offer a package, or I'm much more willing to negotiate like rates and numbers on a longer term deal than I would be for a one-off.
That is a great point. And I feel like we could go on and on about this topic, but to wrap things up, Lindsay, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to relay to the brands that are watching this episode?
I totally understand the concern or hesitation from a lot of brands that think they want to just start out with product-based partnerships, or they're nervous about investing in the budget. But I will say people like me are able to do this full time because brands realize that there is such an ROI, and we really do. I think we think of ourselves as the future of what marketing is, because just you have to think about your everyday life, or put yourself in the mindset of Gen Z or Gen X or whatever. They're only finding out about things through people that they follow. So don't you want to be like in front of those people? Yes, you do. And the only way you really can guarantee that, or at least control the messaging around it, is by doing paid partnerships. And so I would say, just invest in creators, like value the work that we do. A lot of us do take this so seriously and put so much care and like love into the content we create. And so all we ask is to get compensated fairly for the work that we're doing.
Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. I'm very excited to hear people's feedback and use this as a tool to continue to educate our clients and the different brands that watch this episode. So thank you so much. If you want to check Lindsay out, she has a phenomenal account. I highly recommend going and following it. it is at Lindsay SILB.